Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Erongo Talk. My name is Lehandria Low and today we join you from the Kuisebmond Public Library here in Walvis Bay. Now, as usual, I bring you the latest news, the weather and tides, and then for our interview we're chatting to our very own Irené-Mari van der Walt, who is a My Zone School newspaper coordinator. Now she's going to tell us about My Zone and what it's all about and what the project exactly entails. So please don't go anywhere, we'll be right back after this. And now it's time for your news, and we join you from the Kuisebmond Public Library here in Walvis Bay. Now, Namibia has halted all poultry imports from South Africa due to a bird influenza outbreak in that country. Now, earlier this week, the Agriculture Ministry announced the immediate suspension of poultry and related raw products after an outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza in South Africa. Now, the ministry said that HPAI was first detected on a commercial poultry farm in South Africa on 9 April 2021, and South African veterinary authorities indicated a further 8 commercial poultry farms have subsequently been affected. Now, due to the 21-day incubation period of this influenza, the suspension is effective from 19 March 2021. Thus, chicken packaged on or before 19 March 2021 will be refused entry by Namibian customs, the ministry explained. Now, all import and transit permits for poultry products from South Africa were also cancelled, and these measures will stay in place until further notice. Now, Namibia will still allow the import of poultry products that have been in transit through South Africa but hail from areas that are free of the influenza virus. But there is so much more happening on our website. Please go and read more on our website. That's at www.erongo.com.na. Now, our health ministry has asked that we please still comply with the COVID-19 regulations. Now, the Ministry of Health and Social Services advised members of the public to continue adhering to COVID-19 preventative measures following an increase in COVID-19 cases. Now, Namibia has witnessed a spike in the numbers of the new infections reported countrywide, with new cases being reported in 14 regions daily. Now, to date, more than 51,000 COVID-19 confirmed cases have been recorded, with more than 730 persons that have died due to COVID-19 complications. Now, according to the Executive Director of Health, Ben Nangombe, of concern is the fact that more severe cases, higher number of hospitalizations and deaths have been recorded. Now, increased hospitalizations have exerted pressure on the available capacity of intensive care treatment, both in the public and the private sectors. Now, Nangombe said that in this context and the observed lax compliance with COVID-19 public health regulations, the ministry urges Namibians to strictly comply with all regulations to suppress and prevent the further spread of the virus. Now, we can prevent infections and deaths due to COVID-19 by exercising discipline and by being vaccinated. We also need to practice the correct wearing of face masks, observe social distancing, and frequently wash your hands with soap and clean water or sanitize with alcohol-based hand rub. We have no other choice, Nangombe said. Now, he also called on community, traditional and religious, as well as law enforcement agencies to support all efforts aimed at promoting compliance with the regulations. Now, Nangombe said that the COVID-19 situation around the world in the country continues to evolve as we are seeing new COVID-19 waves which are more severe than the initial outbreaks. New variants, some more virulent in nature, has also been recorded. But you can read more on this on our website. That's at www.erongo.com.na. That's www.erongo.com.na.
With me here in studio is Irene van der Walt, one of the coordinators of My Zone here in Erongo. How do you do, Irene?
I'm doing well, Tira. How are you?
Wonderful. So we're here to talk about My Zone. What's My Zone all about?
Okay, so My Zone is the youth brand for the company that hosts Erongo and Erongo Talk, Republica in Namibia, and all that jazz. We're the youth brand representing the youth in Namibia. It started with the school newspaper project. Back then it was known as the NMH School Newspaper Project. So schools used to have school newspapers. This was a casual feature in schools, but over time this faded out. So Namibia Media Holdings then decided to bring it back and to initiate a school newspaper within schools that fall under the My Zone brand. So the school is tasked with getting an editorial team together on their schools, and they then generate and create content for their school newspaper. It started as an 8-pager, but recently it scaled down to a 5-pager, but it got a lot more exciting as it became a 5-pager.
Yeah, that's wonderful, something for the youth. So tell us a bit, why did you actually decide to take part in something like this?
So I actually joined the My Zone project when I was 15. I remember it was my first English class of the second term, and my English teacher, who I loved, Mrs. Ronaldo, she stood in front of the class and she said, who would want to become a journalist? I'd never wanted to be a journalist, but for some reason my hand just shot up, and the rest, as they say, is history. I was on the My Zone project. I was the sub-editor and later editor of my school newspaper at Namib High School. And with that experience, with that exposure into the industry, I later applied for a job at Namibia Media Holdings as an intern, was an intern for a while, and then became a junior journalist for My Zone, and I'm now also a coordinator. So that's kind of, in short, my story. That's why I became involved. I like new things. I like trying new things. I like making things. I've always been very creative. So that's, I think, the opportunity that My Zone can be for the youth as well, is what it's done for me.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's not a lot of people that actually has something to focus on for so long. So why do you actually think that empowering the youth via programs like this is essential in these times?
I think as a product of a public school, I especially see space for this project in public schools. We obviously are involved with a lot of private schools as well. But I think journalism and good old-fashioned journalism is fading. And I think it's important that we uplift kids from a young age and remind them that the media industry is there, that a career in journalism is possible, I think the world puts journalists on this superhuman pedestal, and I think telling the kids from teenage age that they can be journalists, that they can be media professionals is important, and teaching them the basics of writing a newspaper article, taking videos for press and circulation purposes and things like that, that is important, and that comes in handy when you at 18, 19, 22 years old step into the media industry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So earlier you mentioned something about My Zone being involved with schools and editorial teams and newspapers. So how do you actually go about that?
So what will happen is that I approach a school saying, listen, your My Zone school newspaper is coming out, these are your dates, and then I physically go to the school with my experience in journalism and with sort of the contacts and integration of the experienced journalist within Namibia Media Holdings. I approach the school, I give the kids some training on how to write a newspaper article, I remind them of what is expected from the My Zone school newspaper project, and then the biggest part of my job is just guiding that process, being available for the kids to ask questions like, listen, I've just done an interview, but I don't quite know how to write up that information into an article. What do I do in this situation? What do I do when this happens? Just really taking them by the hand and guiding them through that process, I think, is the most important part of my job.
Yes. So this process is more smooth and soothing for schools that are already, taking part in this program. So what about new schools that want to take part in this program? Do you also have something to cater for those ones?
Yes. My Zone, as being a youth brand, doesn't just care for the My Zone schools, We cater to all the schools, all the youth brands. It's not just about our My Zone schools and feeding our own and taking care of our own. It is for the youth at large, and it speaks into youth issues and youth-related events as such.
Yeah. So you have a media camp coming up. You know, what's actually happening at a media camp? What's your experience like with media camps?
Okay, so actually, funny enough, I attended one media camp in my time as a sort of part of the My Zone project before I started working at Namibia Media Holdings, and that is where I decided that I wanted to be a journalist. So media camp is very special to me. Media camp essentially is a little bit more in-depth training. So I, having only a few years of experience in journalism, can only give kids so much information, and especially when I do approach them for training and for education purposes, I can only teach them so much in a limited amount of time, in an afternoon, in an hour or two, you know? So media camp is meant to give the more experienced, more seasoned people working at Namibia Media Holdings and working in the media industry the opportunity to connect with the kids, to teach them things that I can't necessarily teach them in an afternoon. So it's a little bit more longer format, but also a more concise training program for the kids on the My Zone project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful. So you've been at it for more than 6 years now, if we just put it out there roughly. Okay, so you probably have something that you want to achieve with this program. Yeah, what might that be?
I think I always say that if I can do for one kid what my Zone project coordinator Leandria did for me, that'll be enough for me. You know, I get to do something that I love doing, that I really enjoy doing. Even when it gets hard, I have to remind myself that I'm passionate about what I do. And I get to do that because I had somebody to introduce me to it, and somebody to encourage me when things got hard. And I always say that that's something that's important to me. But again, I would like to see, and I am seeing the My Zone brand speak more into youth issues and social issues that touch the youth. And not just the My Zone brand newspaper, but the school newspaper. We're also seeing all our school newspapers move into speaking on social issues. For example, I had a school write a piece on colorism, for example. So we are seeing the kids want to speak on social issues, and we're also seeing the My Zone brand move a little bit more into social issues that touch the youth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful. So there is this question I've been dying to ask. Yes. So, working with people is something that is very, very, awesome. Okay. But working with the youth and kids in general can be very stressful. Do you believe that you have the patience to work with the students?
I don't think there's a lot of patience needed. Sometimes there are little issues. I mean, in what line of work is there not a problem? It's never seamless, I think with me still being 20 years old, I have a special connection with the kids in the sense that I'm an adult to them, so they look up to me in a way, but also I'm still young enough to be their friend, And I think that's important, is reminding them that I was once them as well. I was once also a child in high school on the My Zone project, and that I'm not there to be the Tani who collects content. I'm there to really be Irene, who helps them with their newspaper, who wants to see them succeed with their newspaper. So I think that's a unique advantage I have, is number one, being a proof of concept of the My Zone project, but also still being young enough to connect with them as teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so earlier we spoke about you working together with the My Zone schools. So how can new schools that want to be a part of this My Zone project get in touch with you?
I mean, get in touch with me. Get in touch with Octavia at myzone.com.na, or with me personally. That is Irene-Marie. Marie is Mari at Erongo.com.na. You can get in touch with us, and we will let you know. We will see how we can accommodate your school on the My Zone project as well.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you for being here, Irene.
Thank you for having me, Tero.
Yeah. You're watching Erongo Talk. We'll be right back after this.
Greetings, my name is Elizabeth Shupala. I'm currently a grade 12 learner at the mighty Dainesach in the Erongo region. I've managed to rank number 10 in the country and the best in the Erongo region for the grade 11 and AACO examinations in 2020. When you look at me, you probably think I spend most of my time studying or had perfect execution plans. But to be honest, I watched TikToks and Grey's Anatomy and Netflix in exams when I knew that I really shouldn't have. But I think it is important, or it's worth noting, that sometimes it's needed to have a laugh, just a little break. With all the exam stress and anxiety, it's important that we just have a little distraction that helps us get our mind off the stressful examinations. But nevertheless, it is important that you always get back on that horse, that you put in all the effort, the time, and the hard work, and that you walk into that exam room with utmost confidence in your ability to perform.
And now it's time for your weather and tides for all the major towns here in the Erongo region. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Erongo Talk, but head on over to our website. That's at www.erongo.com.na. That's www.erongo.com.na for all the latest news that's happening right here in the Erongo region. You can also follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram, and you can also get in contact with us at 0811 7040. That's 0811 7040 on both WhatsApp and Telegram. Let us know what's happening in your town. Send us some news tips, send us some videos, or if you want to advertise with us, that is also your go-to number. That's 0811 7040, 0811 7040. Now, it's almost weekend. Just hang in there. We'll be back again tomorrow. That's Friday with a lekker show. So until then, it's goodbye for now.